Mel. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So, I want to hear your superhero origin story of how you got to be a musician because I think you've been doing it your whole life.
Yes, I am the number 12 of my brothers and sisters. And, my brothers and sisters, my siblings were part of the church's band and the church's choir in Camagüey, Cuba, where I was born. And so I really don't remember where it all started because, since I was in my mom's womb, I was part of that thing. And yeah, my brothers helped me out with like learning the first kind of like piano notes and guitar notes and accordion notes. So whatever was needed in the band, I would be just sitting in. So yeah, music has been part of my whole life.
So, you're the youngest of 12, and are your brothers and sisters musicians as well?
Uh, I have one brother, the one that I follow, that yeah, I think he's the most talented in the family. He never studied in the music school like I did, but he's actually a professor of a conservatory in Cuba.
Do you remember the first time you were introduced to the music of Buena Vista Social Club?
I actually don't because the music of Buena Vista Social Club, even before Buena Vista Social Club was a thing, was already in the fabric of the Cuban culture. And so I grew up listening to Veinte Años, to all of these, beautiful songs. I think Chan Chan, which is one of the signature Buena Vista songs, was kind of like the song that made me think of Buena Vista as a thing, as a brand, as something that stand out.
But then in the 90s, it just took over, it just ignited. Why do you think that was?
Well, I think I don't know. Maybe Cuba was going through a very rough time in the 90s.
Yeah.
It was going through the time that they called special period, which has nothing special. Well, I mean, the only special about it was that it was, you know, everything was just bad. It was
Right.
right after the Soviet Union disappeared, the Berlin Wall fell, and Cuba was connected to that European mentality and had a lot of support, economical support from that part of the world. So there was nothing. I remember being, in school eating like banana soup. If you haven't tried banana soup, you're not missing anything. It just sucks. And so Buena Vista suddenly came up, and it became this thing that gave so much hope to everybody because right away the whole world embraced it, and younger people who were like playing, salsa or timba, which is like the Cuban kind of like popular music at the time. Everyone was thriving to be a timba band player. Suddenly was like, oh my God, no, Buena Vista is the thing. It's like the thing that was gonna help us, discover the world and be a successful artist.
So then this project comes along. It was an off Broadway play first. Tell me where you were when you were approached about this show and what you thought about it. Because you don't live here and you're not connected to the
Yes.
theater industry.
Yeah, I've been living in Barcelona, Spain for the longest time, around longer than 20 years. And for the last 10 or so, I put together a band with some people I've met, some musicians I met from California,
Gone, Gone Beyond,
Gone Beyond. And
which is so good. I have to tell people, look it up. It's so
yeah,
good.
it's a beautiful, very also serendipitous thing that happened because a lot of serendipity has happened in my life, and I'm so grateful for things that I didn't like grow up, like being born in a musical family and kind of like finding music as my career, and that something I never thought about or decided, but now I'm still able to live off of that thing. And anyway, so I've been a touring musician for 10 years. I've been coming back to America just to tour with my band. And I get this email from some casting company, like, this is whatever iteration of Buena Vista. And I'm like, I have no idea what a musical is. I mean, I love like West Side Story movie and things like that from back in the day. I've seen La La Land. But when I saw the word musical in it, I'm like, are they gonna La La Land Buena Vista? Because this is what I'm gonna do. I don't want to be a part of that. I was a little bit, I didn't know what that was, and so I showed it to my wife, and she's like, they wanted me to send them a video playing a song. Like, no, let's shoot the video right now. Let's send them.
Why not?
We have nothing to lose. They answered right away. They wanted to jump on a Zoom call, so we did. And I'm like, there's like 10 people on the other side of the call, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, what? I'm like, listen, I live in Spain. I'm a touring artist. I have no time for this. I've never done theater before. I have zero acting experience. So maybe I'm not what you're looking for. And they're like, well, you know, maybe
They
we
knew.
can, yeah, maybe we can work together. So at first I was very like reluctant, but then they invited me to one of the workshops, and I remember Steven Spielberg iteration of West Side Story had just come out maybe a year or a couple of years before. I fell in love with that, with Justin Peck's,
Oh yeah, of course.
choreographies and the movie, and I love the music because I'm a fan of Bernstein. And then when I get to the workshop, I'm like, yeah, I met this guy shooting the West Side Story movies. I started like meeting all these dancers and Justin Peck that was there. And I'm like, oh my God, am I really going to be a part of this? So kind of like my mentality kind of shifted in the workshop, like getting to meet everybody. And I met Renesito there as well, our outstanding chess player. And so I'm like, oh, maybe I should give this a chance.
I'm so glad you did. And you
Hmm.
play Ibrahim Ferrer. What did you know about Ibrahim Ferrer before you took on the role? And what's important to you about keeping yourself, grounded and also honoring who he was?
Yeah. I gotta say, when I moved to Havana, because I grew up in a city, smaller city called Camagüey, uh, I started to know more about Ibrahim Ferrer. I fell in love with his voice. I fell in love with his demeanor and how humble and grounded he always looked. So he was a little bit of a hero, like a musical hero for me, and it was completely out of my eyesight that I would ever pay homage to him in this way. And so, since I was never in theater before, I had no acting experience. I was trying to, you know, become Ibrahim Ferrer. And I'm so lucky to be in such an incredible environment of professionals. My coaches were like helping me out, understanding that I didn't need to impersonate anything because my life has so much to do with Ibrahim's life. There's so much parallel things in both of our stories that I just had to, um, have my experiences be at service for the script.
What are some of the parallels?
Um, well, I studied music, graduated from music university. I was a classical percussionist playing with the symphonic orchestras and jazz groups. I was touring in Europe. And then I went to Spain, and my Cuban passport was revoked. I wasn't allowed to return to Cuba for 5 years. So I was illegal in Spain for like a couple years. And so I didn't have any access to the work environment that I was used to. So I had to busk. I was just like
On the
singing in
street.
the street for a living. And I was actually singing some of the Buena Vista songs, some Bob Marley songs, some Beatles songs. So my chest was, I had like a little bit puffed chest before that because I was a classically trained musician, and I had to deflect that and be very, down to the ground kind of person after that. So um, there's a lot that has to do with Ibrahim's story because in the 50s he was like this, you know, very active musician, and then in the 60s and after that he also had to, you know, busk and
Right.
look for, make a living like that.
What do you think about each night before you step into his shoes and step on stage?
Um, I honor the memories of all of these musicians, and especially Ibrahim's memory. They mean so much to us, but they also mean so much to so many people. And I'm here now. I'm far away from my siblings, and my mom passed, my father passed, and Ibrahim is gone as well. And most of these amazing Buena Vista original artists are gone. So I kind of like say a silent prayer, before I go on stage. And some of the musicians in the band, they're religious. They practice the Cuban Santeria, so they also do their prayers with their drums. And people maybe don't know when they're sitting, when they're coming into the theater and sitting down, but all of them are there just doing their prayers with their drums. And I take a moment to just like have my own prayer and before going on stage. And it's a very serious
It
thing, I
sounds
think.
serious. It sounds very meditative. And then it's a party when you're on that stage. That audience is having a great time.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience being on stage and looking out into the crowd, some of which this might be their introduction to this kind of music.
Yeah, I feel like one of the things that surprised me and still kind of like keeps me in awe every time I leave the theater is how it impacts people that have nothing to do with the Cuban culture.
Right.
You know, rednecks from Nebraska, kids, 12-year-old kids that have no idea about Cuban culture or Cuban music, and just listen to a whole thing in Spanish. And it's so interesting to me that it hits people's emotions in such a deep way. I feel like even though it's such a niche, small story that we're telling every day on stage, it touches on so many universal aspects of life, and people are able to, pick on that. And well, I guess it touches them because it tells something about their own lives.
Is that what brings you joy in being on Broadway?
I think it's it's surprising to me the idea that I had of playing 8 shows a week and the reality of playing 8 shows a week. I feel like there's so
What did you
much.
think it was going to be?
I thought I was, I'm a touring artist, so everything changes all the time.
Right.
I'm on a bus. The audience is, the places are different, and
Mm-hmm.
there's like this excitement of like, oh my god, what am I gonna find? And I have my guitar, and I come out on stage, people, they know my music, and oh my god,
Right.
it's so exciting. So I thought like walking into like the same stage every day would be something, that would be boring at some time, at
Mm-hmm.
some point. But it's so thrilling. It's so incredibly exciting. Um, I feel a responsibility, but also people give us so much feedback when we walk out of the theater, and so I'm always curious about what's going to happen. And also, I grew up in Cuba, and I haven't been playing Cuban music in a long time, so it's a little bit of a comeback to my roots. So it ends up being a little bit of a therapeutic experience for me, and I guess for many of us. Um, yes.
Okay. I'm going to regret it if I don't ask you this question. But I would say if you were to Google yourself, 9 times out of 10, you're wearing a red hat. If you look at the images. And today you're not, but normally you are. So you have to tell me the story of the hat.
I was never a hat person. I actually had like one of those Ibrahim Ferrer hats
Oh, yeah.
before.
Like a little
And
newsboy cap
yeah,
is what he
exactly.
wore. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And when I started touring in America, one of my bandmates, he's a hat kind of guy. He has, I don't know, tens of hats, lots of hats. And he got himself a red hat, my first red hat, but I didn't know. And it was a little bit big for him. So it's like, why don't you try it? I'm like, that looks ridiculous. I don't think I'm going to try that. He's like, yeah, go ahead, try it. And it was in our first tour, my first tour in America with him, and I put it on. I remember we were driving out of, I think, Nevada City, one of those places, and then I flipped one of those little mirrors when you're like in a passenger seat,
Hmm.
and I flipped it. And I looked at myself, the red hat. And I'm like, whoa! I don't know, but I think I like this guy, and so there was a little bit of a thing that happened there. It was like my life kind of changed from that moment on, and then I destroyed that hat because I
You
used
wore
it
it
all the
all the
time. Yeah,
time.
and then I was very lucky. I met this hat maker in Oakland, California, and he custom made this red hat that it's in almost all my pictures, and um, I feel like I don't wear it all the time because it's a little
Well, you have
it
other
stands
colors
out.
apparently.
Well, I was playing a salon concert in New York the other day, and like a month ago, and then this hat maker comes and it's like, "I'm gonna make you a hat," and I'm like, "All
Wow.
right, oh, that's so cool." And so he took my measurements and he showed me a lot of like different, textures and stuff like that. And I was thinking to have like a more daily driver kind of hat because the red hat is like I can't wear it all the time. So this is like my daily driver kind of hat. And,
I see. I'm so grateful that I know this story now
um,
because it is really part of your signature look.
my wife told me that I should bless this hat and add like a emotional or maybe like a significance to it. So it has like a piece of ebony
Yeah.
that the hat maker brought from Africa, and it's like a little bit of a, what do you call it, like a fan
Mm-hmm.
looking
Yes.
kind of thing. And so I thought this is gonna be the calm and abundance hat because also I'm close to my half a century um, time, and I'm like
Oh,
in a
that's a
moment of
good
my
thing to
life
wear
where
in the new year then.
yes, and I'm
There you
looking
go.
for just to be more at peace and also welcome a lot of abundance. Yeah.
I love
So the
it.
fan, like the ebony is like a very precious material, and the fan is something that you only wear when you're sitting on a rocking chair or something. So it's
That's right.
calm and abundance hat.
See, you ask these questions, you don't know what you're going to get. Well, Mel, thank you for joining me. It was wonderful to talk to you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.